Hello everyone and welcome to another most exciting game from the Xtracon Open 2019. Now, I know you're probably thinking I'm showing this game because we've already seen a game by Vaishali, Praggnanandha's sister, but that is not the case. There is a very good, well, a better reason I'm showing this game, and I could have shown a different one. For example, I could have shown you Praggnanandha's game against Anton Korobov, who is, well, he's not the top seed, but he's the second seed, if that's how you say it, in the tournament, only by a difference by four ELO rating points. But I decided to show this one as it's, well, much more exciting, and the opening choice is, well, much nicer, so to say. So without further ado, let's check it out. Praggnanandhaa with the white pieces faces Daniele Vocaturo, the highest rated Italian Grandmaster as of 2017, since Fabiano Caruana now plays for the United States. And, well, definitely a tough matchup for Praggnanandhaa. So let's see what happens. We have e4, c5, knight to f3. The Sicilian game is on the board. And now g6. Vocaturo goes for the hyper-accelerated dragon, which is a very exciting opening and a favorite amongst those who are just starting to, well, learn opening theory, as there is much less to learn than if you try, I don't know, the knight or the... well, the normal dragon or the the Lasker variation or something like that. But okay, we have d4, c captures, and now knight captures on d4. Queen captures is also a very nice idea as it threatens the rook, but it's a very nice line where black will get a lot of counterplay. For example, knight f6, e5, now knight c6, attacking both the pawn and the queen, and after queen a4 you move the knight and then you bring the queen back. Knight b6, and then it's a nice game where black can even, for example, after knight c3 sacrifice a pawn to get some nice, nice chances here. Which is all very analyzed, and of course, if it was better for white, people would play it. So knight captures on d4. We have knight to c6 and now c4. We have a nice Marozzi bind setup by Praggnanandhaa. He wants to play b3 at some point and f3 and then just enjoy a superior position. We have knight to f6 attacking the pawn here, knight to c3 and now d6 and the bishop to e2. We have knight captures on d4, queen captures, and queen to g7. There is no pressure here as there are no good discoveries here to be made by the knight, so white simply develops. We have bishop to e3, Vocaturo castles, and queen to d2 by Praggnanandhaa. This is the main line that is being played. There are over 1600 games with this exact same line. Now white can castle kingside, queenside. You can play for some bishop to h6 just to get rid of black's dragon, but black goes a5, which is the standard setup. White will at some point play b3, so you might be able to challenge his setup by playing a4. b3 at the moment is not possible since you would blunder the rook. Your rooks are not connected. Knight captures on e4 would be simply too much to deal with if you play b3, for example. So f3 and now a4, not allowing b3 in the future. We have king to f2 castling, also possible. Praggnanandhaa prefers king to f2, and now queen to a5. And now I know what you're thinking. Probably knight to d5 is a nice trick. You know, he captures your queen and then you snatch a pawn with check and then only recapture your queen. But it doesn't work because black will just capture your knight. The queen is protected, so it's not one of those, well, cheap tricks. So rook 8 to c1 by Praggnanandhaa, and now bishop to e6. And interestingly, this has all been played before. And only now knight to d5. Here white uses this, well, nifty little trick to improve his pawn structure in the center and also to grab hold of the open c file. So here, if you just move back, let's say queen d8 to defend your e7 pawn, just to avoid a queen trade, knight b6 is super strong. The bishop pair is slicing all the way here, and well, you don't really have a good square for the rook. You'd have to move it, and then you lose the a4 pawn. Another thing is, if you capture with the knight, it's not really a good option for you because after the exchange of queens and c captures here, you don't really have a good square for the bishop. Your bishop is a terrible piece. Now you can't go here because of rook to c7, and even after something like bishop here, you're also getting rook to c7, and it's just well, a terrible light square bishop. So bishop captures on d5. It's one of those well, positions where it's just better to give up the bishop pair rather than to have your bishop useless in hopes of maybe reactivating it somewhere in the deep end game. Queen captures on a5 now, rook captures and pawn captures here. And now Praggnanandhaa improved his pawn structure and he's preparing rook to c7. There's nothing black can really do about it. So knight to d7 with rook to c7 and now knight to c5. And here white is not in a rush to either capture here and then get rid of the b7 pawn or to immediately get rid of the e7 pawn. But first rook to b1, just guarding that b2 pawn so the bishop doesn't take it away. And now bishop to f6. And there is only one game that has reached this position, and it's a game between Fabiano Caruana and Mikhail Antipov in the Gibraltar Masters 2017, where Fabiano continued with g4 and he won a very nice game, but it took him, well, a lot of moves, It was a really intense game. But here, Praggnanandhaa improves on Caruana's move. He actually plays the strongest move recommended by the engine, and it is b4. So it's hard to say if, well, it's maybe an even stronger engine will play Caruana's move. I don't know. But, you know, I don't know if he knows about the game Caruana versus Antipov, but, and I haven't seen if there are any interviews after the Xtracon games, but, you know, it would be very interesting to know if he actually knew or if he maybe found b4 over the board. Now, of course, the threat is just to capture anything here, so you have to capture a captures on b3 en passant. We have a captures on b3, pawn captures, again threatening b4, and now rook to a2. With b4 attacking the knight, knight to a4, and now rook b to c1, not allowing knight to c3. So you take away that from the knight, and now rook to b2. So what's Praggnanandhaa's point here? Why was b4 better than g4, and why did he allow it now to be under attack? How do you defend it? Is there a way to actually defend it? Well, you could capture on b7, but Praggnanandhaa has an even better idea. Bishop to h6, where he now forces the exchange of dark square bishops, and this dark square bishop is black's most useful piece, so to say. The knight here not really doing all that much, and you can't avoid this. If you just move the rook, rook c8 leads to checkmate. There's no way to defend. Either you move the bishop and then rook captures, or you capture, the other rook recaptures, and, well, for example, it will be a very quick mate. So bishop to g7, now removing the defender of the e7 pawn. Bishop captures, king captures, and now rook captures on e7. So Praggnanandhaa's idea is just give up this flank b pawn for the nice central pawn. And the end result is after rook captures on b4, now you can see that Vocaturo has 3 pawn islands, whereas Praggnanandhaa has only 1 pawn island. Again, the elusive green square appears. I decided to use it as it's a nice way of showing you that there is only 1 pawn chain. And rook c to c7. And already this looks very ugly. 2 rooks on the 7th rank. It's not something you want to face in an endgame. And g5 by black, not allowing white f4 or h4, but Praggnanandhaa uses this to his advantage. Here he could go rook captures on b7. Sure, it's a move, but Praggnanandhaa plays in a great style. He plays e5. What is e5 doing? Well, he's threatening just to capture a nice pawn here. So d captures on e5, and now not recapturing and going for g5, but rather d6. Here, Praggnanandhaa starts pushing his pass pawn. d7 and d8, well, d7 and obviously rook to e8 is a threat, but you don't want to allow this. So rook to d4, putting a rook behind a pass pawn, whether it's your own pawn or your opponent's pawn. And now, what's the idea? Here, bishop to c4, just piling up on the f7 pawn. We have rook captures on d6, and now bishop captures on f7, threatening bishop back to b3 with a discovered check to pick up the knight here. So king to f6, not allowing any discovered checks, and now bishop to h5. And now Praggnanandhaa is ready to gobble up all of the pawns. We have rook to c6, offering a trade, but now rook captures on b7. Knight to c5, attacking the rook, and now rook to f7 check. Rook captures with check, king e6, only move, and now rook captures on h7. So here, again, it's 3 pawns to 2, but again, Praggnanandhaa 1 pawn island, Vocaturo 2 pawn islands, and it's a bishop against a knight. Knight d3 check with king to e3, and now rook to c3, threatening some discoveries, but Praggnanandhaa says not a problem. Rook h6 check, king e7, and now bringing the king deeper into the position. King e4, hoping to get king f5 in and get rid of, well, the remaining pawns. We have knight to f4, and now the g2 pawn is under attack. So here, almost said Capablanca, Praggnanandhaa plays g3 first, just getting rid of the knight. With knight captures, rook captures, and now king to f6, preventing the white king from advancing. But now rook to h6 check, king to f7, and now rook to d6, just giving black a move. So what do you play? Here, Vocaturo went for the h2 pawn, and only now does Praggnanandhaa capture. With king captures on e5, rook captures on h2, and now king to f5. So going after the last black pawn, rook to h3, and now of course before capturing, just king g4, force the rook away from your g3 pawn, then you're gonna recapture, and then after rook to, well, it was in this game that Daniele Vocaturo resigned the game, but after you move the rook, for example h1 or h8, doesn't matter, you're gonna capture here, check, maybe king f4, and you have two pawns, two connected pass pawns, whereas your opponent has none. It's a completely winning endgame. So of course Vocaturo knows this, and after king g4 he resigns the game. And well, I just thought that you would enjoy this game very much, since it was a hyper accelerated dragon, a nice use of the Marozzi bind, really just a nice way of outplaying the #1 Italian Grandmaster. And also, I mentioned that there is a reason why I showed this game. I chose this game because this is a game from round 7, and after round 7, Praggnanandhaa is the sole leader of the Xtracon Open. Here are his opponents, so we can just enjoy that for a second. So as you can see, after 4 clean victories, he faces, Praggnanandhaa faced Ariantari, Norwegian Grandmaster. He drew that game, and then he defeated Anton Korobov, the game I thought about showing, the second seed of the tournament. 2687 is his rating, so really just an insane victory. But it was really a tug-of-war game where Korobov blundered severely in the endgame, and Praggnanandhaa was able to capitalize on that. And then another nice victory, a very clean one, as you've just seen, against Daniele Vocaturo, #1 rated Italian Grandmaster. So really just exciting. Praggnanandhaa now on 6.5 out of 7, sole leader, all the other players sharing second place with 6 out of 7. So really insane stuff by young Praggu. Really hoping to see if he can take this, you know, to the end, win the Xtracon Open, which is really just a very strong open tournament. Would do a lot, you know, for young Praggu, and for his rating. He's been trying to breach 2600. For quite some time now, and it seems that he was, you know, secretly training to achieve this super form. But yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Blake Redden for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Hopefully with some more interesting content, maybe checking up what's, you know, how Praggu will do, continuing the Capablanca saga, and of course checking up on your suggestions. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.